Right, so this is where we left off while you guys are getting prepped. Like I said, we have basically the main structural grid in here. We put in columns. We added, well, first of all, we fine-tuned our grids and levels, so we were able to add columns and beams, thinking about the beams and their clearance along with the floor thickness that we're going to place on top of them. Now we're going to start adding more beams. Okay. So, you guys ready? Go ahead and get settled in. And again, I'm recording this time, so I don't have to re-record again, some off chance on my to-do list. Okay, so let's think about this just for a minute. Right, so I've been drawing beams in just the regular architectural floor plan, and every time I do that, it gives me an error saying, well, we can't see the floor, so we're not actually seeing the beams that you're drawing, right? We can go to a structural or framing plan and actually draw them in a lot easier and see our progress as we go. We're just getting started, so go ahead and get settled in. All right. And this is going to be a sort of a refresher anyway of what we were doing anyway, drawing beams. We'll draw more beams. So if we think about this, we have our structural grid. These larger beams, we're going to have smaller beams that span in between and frame into the beams. So these bigger beams, we typically call those girders, right? And now we'll start to draw the joist beams that actually frame into them. So what I'm going to do to make this as easy as possible is I'm going to go down, see where I have architectural floor plans. If I go to my project browser, I think by default, this template gave me also structural plans for level 1 and level 2, right? Or framing plans. So let's just scroll down. I have electrical plans, mechanical plans, plumbing plans, structural plans. There we go. Yeah, and I already have level 1 and level 2 already pre-made for me. So what I'll do is I'll go to level 1, structural, and look at that. Because the template made it, it's cropped in that weird place again, right? So I just need to uncrop things and then maybe even apply my own scope box, just like we did before with all the other plans and sections that we created. All right, so I have the structural plan. I'm in L1 structural plan. And I'm just going to scroll down, just like we did with the other things, go to the extents, start turning off these cropped views, make sure that there's no scope box, hit apply. Now we see the whole darn thing. And let's just apply our own special scope box. I called it Josh's scope box. I'll hit apply. There we go. Now we're actually looking at our own project. And these structural or framing plans are kind of nice because what you can see highlighted or sort of beefed up with the darker line weight are single lines showing where the centers of our beams are and how they frame into columns, right? So, just as we did before, right, in this structural plan view, I'm going to go ahead and start to draw some beams. So I'm going to go to the Structure tab, just like we did before. Check out these beams. Now, these are going to be smaller beams. Right, before we're using W18s by 40s, right? Those are some pretty good beams. I'm going to go down to like, let's say W14 by 30s for these smaller beams. And I'm just going to, watch what I'm doing, I'm just going to move my cursor, snap it here at that grid, and just move it over. I'll probably start to draw these at about 6 feet on center. All right, so now I'm just drawing beams spanning from my girders. And now the next one, I'll just make sure it's 6 feet over, click, and then I'll move 6 feet over, let it IntelliSense my dimensions there, click, 6 feet over, 4, 5, let's zoom in a little better so we can see those dimensions. There we go. The more I zoom in, the more granular it shows me its steps in the dimensions. All right, one last one, I think. There's 6 feet. There we are. So 6 feet on center. I know that works because we made these things 32. Let's see, what was it? Something like that, right? So we're using divisions of 6, multiples of 6 and 4, so we're all good there. All right. And that's my first bay, and I can just go back through now and just very quickly continue on here. So I go to the beams, make sure I have the W14 by 30s, click, I can just snap right back where I left off with those last set, and click, click, and click, click, and draw some more beams in the middle bay of my 3-bay design scheme here. And then I can do the exact same thing on the last bay. Click, 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 and a click. Clicky McClickerson. And I'm clicked all out today. All right, so now I was doing that in the structural plan. If you look, I can go to the 3D view, and there they are, right? So I'm starting to fill in that structural framing. And we run into the exact same problem that we did when we started drawing the girder beams, right? The big beams. That the tops of these beams are placed right at level 1. We actually want to offset them 5 inches because we know we're going to have 5 inches of floor seen on top. So we want that top of the floor to be at level 1. Everything else becomes a sort of sandwich, reverse engineers back from that, right? So I like to say floor to ceiling sandwich. I've heard it a lot, but it also reflects the fact that I'm ready for lunch already. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and click all of these at once. I'm holding down the control button on my keyboard so I can select all of these at once. Just snap, click, 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 clicky. I can go back up to properties, and that start level offset and then the end level offset. I'm going to change those to -5 inches. So -0 feet 5 inches. Oh yeah, I can hardly wait. There we are. And also down here, 5, oops, not 6, 5, there we go. Negative, add that negative, that's really important. Hit apply, now those move down 5 inches. And again, because of course, we needed to also change their reference point, right? So right now they're just sort of framing into the extents box of our girders, and we actually need to bring them so that they frame into the webbing of our girders. Right? So we will do that here in just a second. Is everybody able to follow along? So here's what I did, and I'll just go ahead and undo and show you again. But this is just, again, a refresh of the things that we were doing before. Anyway, we're just adding more beams now. And I found it really, really easy, much simpler to sort of go to the L1 structural plans, the framing plans, L2 structural and framing plan. So that it's just a lot easier to draw those bad boys in that plan. You can see the beams as you draw them as single thick lines, on the center lines basically, right? And so I'll just go to my L1 structural plan, and again, I'm just going to Structure tab, Beam, and then I'm just going to pick the right beam here. All the families of W shapes and everything else. Here we go. I'll pick my W14 by 30, and then I'm just going to move my cursor. I always use these grids as a reference point. I'm just going to make sure I snap, that it sort of finds that, and I just move my cursor over. And as I do so, it's telling me in real time how far away from that grid line I am, that other beam, right? 6 feet. I'll put these 6 feet on center. That should match up really nice. Always love it when a plan comes together. There we go. 6. And 6. And again, I'm just clicking from one beam to the next, one girder to the next, 6 inches or 6 feet over, right, each time. So now it's going to tell me or ask me or tell me exactly how far over I am. There we go. Oh yeah, look at that. Okay. And I'll just zoom in on the middle bay and click, click. I'll just, again, I'm drawing new beams each time, right? These sort of, each of these are individual beams that get framed into the girder beams with some angles and some bolts and nuts. And have you guys ever seen them erect steel? It's pretty cool. Their guns, the bolts that they use, right, and the nuts, they're made so that you don't strip the bolts and you don't over tighten. So they actually, sometimes the head will shear off. You know, the head that's actually in the thing will shear off after you get to a certain torque. It's actually, it's pretty cool operation that they have. They know their stuff. Steel industry really moved fast in updating their tools. All right, so there we go. All right, structural framing, we're just finishing that out. And again, these things are 5 inches up too high in elevation. So I'm just going to go through. I'm just going to try to select all of these at once. Control, Control, Control. That way I can just adjust all the parameters at once. Just go ahead and select them all. I'll just click through. Man, I wonder about this when I was back in second and third year of architecture school. Like, having a digital structure making machine would have been so handy. I had to make these structural models, and I had to use wood dowels and saw things and glue things together, and it's crazy. There we go. I was like the opposite of a skilled iron worker. It was terrible. All right, so, and then last but not least, of course, right? If you look here, these beams actually end right here at the flange, the edge of the flange. We need them to actually, again, extend to the web, right? Normally we would cut away the flange here and frame them into the web with a couple of angles and some bolts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and select these, just one row at a time. And I'll change that reference for their length, where they actually stop and frame in, right? So hit that change reference, zoom in enough so I can actually get that web, that girder, and have them go in, right? Now it looks like the flanges are actually are colliding, right? Collision there. What we typically do is cut back that beam, right? We cut away the flange of that beam so that the webs can actually frame in together. Right? You guys seen that? Have you guys looked at structural details at all? Or seen those in wall sections? Yeah, okay. Okay, and unfortunately I deselected all of these. I just have to select them again and do it the other direction, and then I'll do the next row. So you can see that, I mean, if anything, there's some practice here, because it's so rote in some cases. But I just have to sort of go through, select these dudes really quickly. Just want these to be perfect, particularly when we bring them into Twinmotion or Lumion or whatever you prefer. I want them to look good, right? I want them to look correct. Don't want beams that look like they're just floating off in space, right? Science fiction beams. All right, change that reference, select that web. And one more row, we'll do it twice because I have 2 ends of each beam, right? Change reference, let's select that beam web, there we are. Oh yeah, look at that. And the same thing over here. And I'll do this for also the roof and the second floor. So unfortunately, this change reference thing, well, it's kind of a drag. You're gonna have to kind of do it repetitively, I suppose. But for level 2, right, I can just go right to the level 2 structural plan. And I'll just draw these in really quickly. My level 2 structural plan, again, is cropped based off of that old template that we use. So before I really select anything, get into down any business, I got to go scroll down, turn off the crops, make sure that our actual scope box, Josh's scope box, is set, hit apply. Now we can actually see our plan. And we only have one bay in the second floor, right? Just this mezzanine deck, right, tray. So I'll go ahead and go to beam, go to my W14 by 30, and sort of work my way over 6 feet on center from the column line. There we go. And then 6 feet more. And 6 feet more. And 6 feet more. I can't wait. Right. Now I go to the 3D view. I can see it's there. I can adjust the offset -5 inches down, right? And as well, I can begin to adjust the reference for its lengths. So let's go ahead and do that. You can see these things are 5 inches too tall. Let's see if I can select them and keep them selected this time. And I'll just move up that offset value, start level offset, change that to -5 inches and -5 inches, and hit apply. And then I'll change reference. Yeah, there we go. I guess I have to select them one more time. Ugh, so annoying, but whatever. And yeah, there we go. Change reference. Select this web over here at the end. And voila. All right. Again, just a lot of stuff. One thing I do want everybody to pay attention to for just one moment. Go ahead and look up here. Stop what you're doing, pause, it's fine. But what you'll notice is that up here for my roof, I have a different level, right? It's one that I made. And so I called it top of steel, right? And what you'll notice is that Revit didn't automatically make a structural floor plan or framing plan for my roof, my top of steel. So in order to do that, I go to View, Tab, and then I go to the Plan Views, and I find Structural Plan. And there I can select top of steel and say, please make a new structural plan for me. And on my structural plans now, I have top of steel. Okay? So I need to do that if I want to use a structural or framing plan to draw in those beams on my roof, right, at the top. So I'll go to top of steel. Really, it's showing the entire site. I'm just going to lock in my own scope box here so I don't have to look at it, I don't have to look at miles of terrain. I can just look at my own site really quickly. There we go. Yep, there we are. And I'm going to do the exact same thing at the top. So add all of these purlins or sort of north-south beams that frame into the girders. The girders then take all those loads down to the columns on either ends in our case. Okay, so our structure beam W14s by 30s. You know, I wonder what the snow loads on Mount Charleston are. They ought to be fairly substantial from time to time. You know, you've got wind loads, lateral loads, right, from the wind, shear and moment from those, but dead loads of snow, right? Because you get the piles of snow, that's ice and water. So yeah, we'll keep a nice. We can't skimp on these beams. In other words, we'll go ahead and keep them as W14s. Here in the desert, we probably could. We don't have so much the way of snow. We don't get 8 to 12 inches of snow piled up on our roof for months at a time, right? It's kind of nice. But this is where I'd start to draw these things in. And then my structural engineer would probably come back and she would say, well, you know, these all need to be W16s instead of W14s. And I could just select them all and change them all at once, right? Because it's all parametric. Let's go ahead and get these things modeled in here. We went to great lengths to sort of make sure that all this stuff would line up, thinking about modules and multiples and space and steel, sort of trying to negotiate the sweet spot for what our bay size could be. And again, I'm just drawing these in. Really what takes time is selecting them all at once and modifying all of their parameters, right? So there's the top of steel. I'll go to the 3D view. The nice thing about this is that the top of steel is the top of steel, right? So we're going to build a roof, and this is actually going to be the bottom of our roof, and our roof will actually pop up higher than that. So we don't actually have to adjust that offset in Z, but we do need to, we do need to actually have these things frame into the girders. So hold down Control, select each row at a time, and change that reference. Oh my gosh. If I had $1 for every time I had to do this, Autodesk would be paying me money out the wazoo. It'd be great. Change reference. All right, now let's do it again. All right. The good news is, very, very soon, we have our frame done, complete, and then we can start pouring floors on top of it, and then hanging walls from it, right? And that's really the idea, right? We don't usually build walls on top of floors. We hang walls from the structure. So here's our skeleton. We'll start to add floors, and after that, we'll start to add our skin or envelope, almost as if we're dressing it in a nice couture suit. All right, so I know I've been doing this, I did this 5 minutes before class, so I've been doing it all morning, and it goes really fast for me, but again, this might be some good practice and just how to select things, multi-select, adjusting those, with practice comes, I guess, muscle memory, so anyway, sorry that you have to do all this all these little extras, but it's kind of nice, right? I mean, it would take me a long time again to start to, make my own dowels or find the right size dowels, for let's say columns versus beams versus sub beams, and measure everything, and again try to keep everything plumb. Yeah.
So the roof beams are thicker than the beams below, right?
No, they're the same.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, so I'm doing the exact same thing for each level.
Okay.
So W14s for these beams that we're adding today. The girders were, I think, W18s or something. I don't remember. All right. Now some of you are still clicking. I hear it. For those of you who are ready, let's start to make some floors. Yay! All right, you're like, yeah, of course, about time. L1 structure, with top of steel structure. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and close out all those those framing plans. I just was hitting X's and closing out tabs. But I'm going to make sure that I'm opening up these floor plans, architectural floor plans. There we go. I'm having problems speaking today. Having problems. There we go. Yeah. All right. Floors are really nice and easy. What I do is I go to architecture and I find floors. And I can just specify architectural floors. And I think we decided the other day that we're going to use 3-inch concrete slab on 2-inch corrugated metal deck. Make a nice 5-inch deposit of steel and concrete. And so what I'm going to do is select it. And what it tells me over here is it says, well, we need to draw the boundary of our floor slabs, right? And you can use these tools. If I want to sort of draw a series of polylines and start to snap around, making a shape, I can. If I just have a rectangular shape that I want to make, I can, right? So let's do that for our first floor. I'll just make a rectangle. And it's going to want to snap at these grid lines. So I'll go ahead and just, basically at level 1 architectural plan, I'll cover our 3 bays with floor. You can see that outline that we generate is highlighted in magenta. And when we hit this green check box, right, now we have, when I selected it's highlighted in blue, our floor slab. Now, here's the idea here, right? I want to expose the steel inside. I want people to be able to see that steel structure, right? And in fact, typically what we would do is we would think about that skin, that envelope, basically hanging off the structure and continuing between level 1, level 2, all the way up to the roof to some sort of parapet, right? So what we're going to do is I'm actually going to extend my floor out to the edge of the structure in all the directions. So this will be good practice because when I select any of my floor slabs, the Modify tab comes up, and over here on the right, I can say Edit Boundary. And now I can start to erase, redraw, slide, move these boundary lines around. So in this case, I already have these made. I'm just going to go ahead and select and then just drag it so that our slab goes all the way to the edge of the structure that we've done. Just go ahead and slide this over. There we go. Oh, yes. Look at that. So good. All right. And voila. There we go. And I'll go ahead and hit the green check mark again. So now if I go to my 3D view, I have my floor going all the way to the edge of the structure. We're casting around those columns. Right, and that way we won't have a gap or some sort of crazy thing when we actually put our exterior walls on. So I'm doing that in the architectural floor plans, level 1. For level 2, I just have this mezzanine over here, the sort of southernmost bay, right? And so I'll do the exact same thing. In this case, I'll go, let's see, architecture, floor, where is it? There it is, floor architectural. Make sure that I have that 3-inch concrete deck or slab on 2-inch metal deck. And in this case, I'll just start draw a polyline around. And look at that, I can actually see the stuff underneath. I can go ahead and snap to the shape that I had previously done. Now in this case, I'm going to stop it right here to the edge of that structure. And over here to the edge of this structure. And over here to this corner. And at long last, all the way back at where I started. Click, hit the green checkbox. Now I have my own slab, right? So just putting in those floors, relatively easy, relatively straightforward, especially compared to adding all these beams and having to sort of adjust them and fine-tune things. When I go to my 3D view, you can see that I now have 5-inch floor slabs, floor plates sitting on top of my structure. That's always a good thing. I'm not going to worry about the roof just yet because I kind of want to see inside of this thing as I start to work, right? So again, maybe I'll just do level 1 one more time here. Why not? Go to my L1 floor plan, find architecture tab, floor architectural. I'm just going to use the rectangle. Let's see here. I'll come down here. I can easily snap to those centers, but I'm going to have to readjust this here in just a bit. There we go. And hit OK. Now I can just modify the boundary. There we go. And then select each of the edges. I can zoom in as much as I want to sort of make sure that this is fairly precise. There we go. Come over here and do the exact same thing. And then down at the southern edge, I got to adjust that as well. And again, I just want it to be sort of flush with the edge of the structure. All right. Yes, we poured that slab. Look at that, this looks so good. As far as floor plates go, fairly nice, huh? Okay. How are we doing? How many of you are still working on some structural framing? A couple of you, all right, take some time. You guys got floors in? Yeah.
Is the floor plate meant to intersect with the beams?
With what?
Is the floor plate meant to like intersect with the beams?
With the what?
With the beams?
No, they intersect with columns, but they sit on top of the beams. That's why we moved the beams down 5 inches, the -5 offset, so that the 5-inch slab would be sitting on top of them. Yeah.
My floors are like grayed out. I can't even fix my floors.
Are grayed out. Yeah, okay, let's take a step. Yeah, take a few minutes to just sort of catch up if you want. And again, reminder, I'm recording this, but now, here soon we'll move on to stairs. Ooh, and walls. Wow, all the elements of architecture are right here at our fingertips. Get apart. Can I see you for a second? Can you turn up the brightness? I cannot see it. There we go. Okay. Now you try to image. What are we looking at? So I'm just going to use this and just start drawing the shape. You see how it's highlighted magenta as I start to draw the shape? next to where it says draw the boundary, there's a set of tools like polylines versus circles, ellipses versus rectangles and squares, etc. And it was just that little thing right there. Isn't that annoying? Revit interface is a funny thing. It makes sense, but it's not necessarily the most intuitive thing when you're trying to find something. All right. You guys ready to do some stairs? Oh, yeah, okay, I can tell. All right, level 1. I'll go to my floor plan. It's really easy to do. And we know that we're going to come up to the edge of level 2. We know that our floor to floor between level 1 and level 2, I think I set that at 20 feet, right? So we have 20 feet of floor to floor to span. That's a good height. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to architecture, and under the architecture tab, if I move over towards the middle of my screen, there's an option for stairs. So I'll go ahead and click the stairs. And what you can see here is that it wants to ask which levels to connect. Where do I start? What level do I start on? What level do I end at? It'll then look at that floor to floor, and it'll begin to try to figure out the math on how many steps you need based off of the allowable minimum maximum of rise and run, right? So if I simply do that, say level 1 and then top level, level 2, it says, well, the desired number of rises would be 35, and each riser height would be 6 inches and 29, blah, 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 blah. 35 means I'm going to have, that's a lot, right? Means I'm going to have, let's think about this, 15 for 30, 16, 17. Means I'm going to have an uneven number of steps for each run if I do a switchback, right? So if I go up, I'm going to have like 18 steps and then another 17 steps up, right? So let's just tell it we want 36 risers so that we get a nice round 18 for each. There we go. And now the riser will change this slightly. I mean, look, that's what I'd rather do. I mean, look, have you guys worked in the valley on stairs and stuff like that before? I mean, if you take it to JD Stairs, they're gonna tell you like, hey, we gotta measure everything down to, we have laser measurements and everything else. We'll take care of the shop drawings and everything else that you can approve. But everything's gonna be off by fractions of an inch on our steel. And so, okay, well then I'd rather have 36 rather than 35 steps. If it doesn't make a difference, I'm still gonna pay out the nose for your stairs, JD Stairs, right? So anyway, so let's see. Now, so I'm gonna go ahead and let's do 36. And now watch what happens when I start to click. I know that my stairs are going to start here. Let's just go this way. And now they're going to go upwards. And every time I get a new step or riser, it's going to tell me how many risers I've created and how many risers remain in that 36, the number of 36, right? So I have 11 made, 25. I'm just going to move this up until I get a nice round 18. There we go. And then I'm going to start over here and do another run of 18. Click, and then click. It's going to add the, what do you call it, the landing for me, right? And this sort of switch back. Okay. And if I go to the 3D view, you can see that I have now a set of stairs that takes me from level 1 to level 2. Now, before I hit this green check mark, I might actually go over here and start to define what railing I want and add the railing. See how that green check mark is still up there? I'm still adding stairs if I want to. Okay. In this case, if I wanted to bring up another level, I could say connect more levels, and then it would take me in my section view. I could start to select all the different levels I want the stairs to then start to connect up based off of the same rules. But since I only go from level 1 to level 2, we'll stop there. I'm going to go ahead and set the railing. What kind of railing do I want? This is always the interesting question. Do I want pipe guardrail? Do I want handrail? Glass panel, bottom infill. Ooh, that sounds pretty fancy. Maybe I'll try that. Do I want them on the treads or on the stringer? Let's go on the stringer, out on the side where you start to see those ups and downs along the edges. And let's try that. Let's see what happens. And is it going to paste them? Okay, maybe I hit plus. Save project, sure, I'll save project. Oh yeah, there it added it. When I hit the plus, it added the railings. Okay, so there it is, right? I mean, Revit has the kit of parts. I mean, it's like, they're right there, right? So, need to make stairs, need to figure out what the size of your stair towers are gonna be for egress, need to size your cores, etc., right? Like all those big decisions you make at the beginning of a project. you can do that here. Once you start to establish your floor to floors, you can begin to understand then exactly, what size these things are gonna be fairly quickly, right? And in an automated way, generate them, to satisfy all the, they'll show up on all the plans and sections and everything else. Okay, it's telling me that we have a jump here with the railing. I don't really care because I'm not a railing expert. Again, if we're paying JD Stairs good money, then they'll figure that stuff out for us. Yeah.
If you could do that one more time, I didn't catch it.
Sure, I absolutely will and can. At least one more time. Let me go ahead and hit undo, or actually, yeah, let's just hit undo. And I'll just hit X. Okay, there we go. All right, here we are. And boy, I can't wait. Let's make some stairs. I'm gonna go to the plan view. I'm gonna go to level 1, right? Typically what you do is you're gonna draw your stairs from the first runs of stairs between levels 1 and 2. Let's say you have a 6-story project you're doing, right? You're gonna go from level 1 to level 2, and then afterwards, once you get that set, then you can start to say, well, I also want the stair to go up to levels 3, 4, 5, and 6, right? Okay, so that's kind of how it works. That's the workflow. Right, so I'm gonna go to level 1, and I'm gonna go to architecture, stair, right. Now I know where this is gonna be located because I know that the edge of my floor slab on the second floor starts right at the edge of the structure. I might actually have to snap this here for right now, but that's okay, I can move it around afterwards, okay. I'm at level 1. I'm gonna look at these properties and just double check and make sure that it says, in fact, that we are going from level 1 to level 2. It says in order to do that, right, well, first of all, it says desired stair height. It already understands that the distance between level 1 and level 2 is 20 feet. So we set that in levels, right? And then it says, in order to traverse that, the desired number of floors might be 35. And I'd say, well, really, I'd like an even number so I can have the same number of steps in both directions. This makes it easier. It doesn't matter. You can work it either way. But I'm just gonna go ahead and hit apply and make it 36. And last but not least, it's gonna tell me, first of all, I think by default, it's gonna let me do it in runs and in straight single runs. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and just click out here and then move this upwards. As I move it upwards, it's gonna tell me in real time how many risers I've created in this length of run and how many I have left remaining to go up to level 2. All right, so it says I have 16 and 20 left. I'm just gonna go up to 18. And then for the second run, I'm just gonna come out here. It looks like I'm going down the center line, so I'm just gonna come out here and eyeball it for a moment and click back, right? Once I do that, it generates the landing for me. Okay. And I'm just gonna go to the 3D view. You can see that I'm probably like smacking into the slab because I went to the center line of the structure rather than the edge of the slab when I drew those edges for the stairs. So I might have to change that and just move that around just slightly again, maybe from the second floor. But before I hit the green check mark, I'm just gonna go to the railing option over here on the right. I'm gonna go ahead and select railing. I'm gonna use the glass panel, and I'll have it going up the stringers on the sides there, and hit the green check mark, and it generates the stairs with the railings. The transition styles for the railing, I don't really care about that. Again, that's not my wheelhouse. In fact, you pay the fabricator a lot to sort of get that right, and then they give you a set of shop drawings where you can just approve or note. So, just going to look at this. Right, I'm looking at it in the second floor plan now. I just want to select the whole staircase, so it's all highlighted blue. And in this case, you see how the stairs stop here at the center line? I want them to actually come to this edge. So with that selected, I'm going to hit the move button and snap and just move it away, right? Just get rid of that collision there. And you know what? I'm also going to move this over to the side, right? So again, I'm just going to zoom in. I'm going to make sure that the whole thing's highlighted blue. Select the whole staircase. Sometimes that can be hard to do. It looks like you're trying to, it wonders if you're trying to just get the stringers, the railing or something, right? So make sure you get everything. I'm going to click, And I'm just going to move this over to the side right here. Oh yeah, look at that. So good. All right. Now, another way that I could, again, look and see where that staircase is placed and make sure that I like it where it's positioned, is I could get inside this thing and get a little quick interior perspective and sort of understand visually, like what would I see when I'm in there, right? Should we make a quick perspective view? It's super easy, right? Okay, so I'm going to go to level 1 and just zoom out a bit. And I'm going to go to my View tab and go to the 3D view and click this little pull down. Instead of going with the default 3D view, I can pick camera. And what that lets me do, if you want to watch, if you're really interested in that perspective view, it lets me place the camera, and then it lets me pick where the camera is pointed at, right? There we are. All right. And there's my perspective. Now, I have the frame selected, and that seems criminally zoomed in. So I'm just going to give myself a little more space here. And now I can see, right, I can see those beams, I can see the floor above me, I can see where the stair is. Most importantly, I can see this big window frame, right? That's the window wall that's going to frame our view of Mount Charleston forever in perpetuity. That's the money shot, right? Like that's the golden ticket. All right. When we make a perspective, you'll see that it's just another tab. It's another drawing. And in fact, under 3D views, it's right here, 3D view 1, right? So if I close it, I can always come back to it. 3D view 1 pops back up, right? Yeah, anyway, there's the 3D view. Yeah, not too bad. So I put this off to the side so that way people can move along axis through here, whilst people can still get up to the second floor mezzanine if they want. Yeah. How are the stairs working for you? Not too bad once you get the hang of it. Not perfect, but beats the hell again out of the way I used to have to do it. When I first started my internship, back when the dinosaurs roamed the earth, I'd literally have to take the building section and do all the floor to floors, and then I would start to draw a stair section, and then I'd have to go back and forth projecting in AutoCAD from the section down to a plan drawing and start to reconcile everything to understand how the size of everything. So basically, it's a section problem, right? You start with section and figure out how to subdivide that floor to floor and get risers that are between 6 and 8 inches or something like that, whatever the level is, depending on which municipality you're working for. And then it's just like it was mind-numbing. Drawing the railing details were just painful weird, but it is what it is. Has to be done. No, it's largely automated, which is nice, right? Yeah. What do you guys think of the stairs? If you don't know how to use them, you don't know what you're doing, it can be really frustrating. Like, trust me. Like, close your laptop and throw it across the room like a frisbee, frustrating. Don't do that, by the way. All right? Okay. Should we make some walls? Let's make some walls. How are we doing on time? Oh, we have plenty of time. Let's make some walls. Are we ready to move on from the stairs? You guys need a few more minutes. Okay. Well, tell me if I need to back up and do something again, but I'm just going to keep pushing so those that are ready to keep going can, right? And I can always go back and show again if need be, okay? And again, this is being recorded, so that'll be also on Canvas. I just would like for you guys to handle as much of this as you can in class, okay? That was my promise to you. I mean to honor it, right? Walls, exterior. So we're going to do some solid walls along the east and west sides, right? Surprise, we're in the desert, and we don't like the east and west sun so much, right? It's great for viewing outside for sunrises and sunsets, but it makes terrible glare, internal heat load, etc., right? It's hard to control. So we're going to make some solid walls along that east-west. Don't worry. I have some very special custom family windows that we'll put in later. Next week at some point in time. Well, I'll give you the family and we can look at how they're made and see how you can make your own window family if you'd like, to frame very specific views. But on the north and the south, right, that's where we can then create glass window walls, right? And basically what we'll be using is storefront or curtain wall. So several different types of walls we'll be using. You guys ready? All right. Woo-hoo. I can tell you guys are excited. All right, so architecture tab, wall. And I'm just going to go to wall architectural. I'm not going to get down into the nitty-gritty, the weeds of the structural wall. I'm going to go wall architectural, and what you'll see then is that in the properties box, if I expand this out. We have lots of different options at our disposal already, just architectural ones, right? So when we look at interior partitions, right, we think about basically just walls like this or like that, right? Maybe some studs, maybe some chipboard on either side. They don't need to be thick. They just need to be able to, so they don't punch or kick through them. They're not sort of separated inside from outside. They don't have to act thermally, so you don't have to insulate the pucky out of them or anything like that, right? They're really simple, straightforward dudes, right? But let's look at some of the outside walls. So we can actually pick things like concrete, masonry filled, etc. We're just going to stick with the generic. Okay, so I'm going to say generic 12. Now, I'm not satisfied with generic 12, and here's why. Because what I want to do is I want to make a super thick-looking wall that looks like then it turns and becomes super thick with the same thickness roof, and then comes back down and becomes the same thickness wall, right? So I'm basically making a frame around my window wall, and I want it to look like one continuous sort of folded surface that's thick, right? Has a certain thickness to it. And for whatever reason, I think when I was doing the roof, I picked, what was it? It was something crazy, like 32 inches, 1 foot 8 inches, right? So I'm going to make my own custom generic wall that's 1 foot 8 inches, right? And here's how. Okay, I'm going to select the thickest one I can find that's generic, and then I'm going to say edit type, right? Now I don't want to get rid of the generic 12 inch in case I need it, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say duplicate, and I'm going to call this one generic 32 inch wall. Right? Hit OK. Now I have a generic 32 inch wall, and what I need to do, again, there's not a lot of properties in here, but if we think about a 32 inch wall, it's going to be substantial, right? I mean, I could easily start to frame that out. I could stagger studs, I could insulate the crap out of that thing if I wanted to, which might be handy in a place that gets really warm and really cool and has lots of swings, right? But what I also want to do is double check and see if I can change its thickness here. In fact, in case you see it up here, it's the width. Why is it not letting me, edit, structure, there we go. All right, so really quickly, right, I'm still here in this window, doing the edit family. I created a duplicate, changed the name for the duplicate to the new one, the generic 32 inch thick wall. Now, in order to change this thickness, this width, this width right here, I need to go in and edit the structure. And in this case, I'm just going to change this from 1 foot 0 inches to 1 foot 8 inches. No, wait, 2 feet 8 inches. Yeah, that's 32. 2 feet 8 inches. Okay. And when I hit OK, and then I hit apply and OK, right, now I have a 32 inch generic wall, right? So that's how you can begin to play around with some of these families and start to customize them yourself. Which is actually really handy, trust me, right? The more you get in the habit of doing these things and saving some of these things out, the more you can start to make your own custom families that you can always bring in later on into your projects, right? And when you work in an office will certainly have a library of these sorts of things, along with their standards. So it's a nice thing to sort of understand. All right, so now we have a 32 inch wall that we can place around this bad boy. And one other thing I'm going to look at, right, is the location line. As I start to draw this wall, and I'll click, like to say, start point and end point, it's going to assume I'm drawing the wall center line. And so now I'm going to have whatever half of 32 is. Is it 16? 16? Yeah. 16 inches on one side, 16 inches on the other side. In this case, what I'm going to do is, since I know where the inside edge of the wall is going to be, I'm going to actually tell it that I want to draw the inside edge of the wall and then have everything sort of offset 32 inches to the outside of it, right? So I'm just going to say, instead of wall center line, I'm going to say finish face interior. And I'm going to zoom in. And look at that, right? Now I'm drawing the inside of the wall right along the edge of our slab, all the way over here. Okay, there we go. And then I can do the exact same thing over here. It looks like I'm going to go clockwise in order to keep the inside, right? So I'm going to start at the top, in this case, over on this side, and work my way down. That's one big honking wall, isn't it? Oh, it's so good. As far as walls go, that's like the mother of all walls. It's like the the Mowall, mother of all walls. All right. Now, I drew these walls. Let me select each one. I'll use control. And you can see that by default, it's started each wall at level 1. And it goes up. It's not connected to any level. It just goes up 20 feet. That's not so handy, right? So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to say the top constraint needs to be, let's say, top of steel, right? Let's take it all the way up to the top if we can, okay? And let's go to the 3D view. You'll see that. Now, we'll also see in the 3D view that we need to offset where the bottom of this wall starts so that it slides past and actually covers, the edge of the slab and the structure and things like that, right? So in other words, it also becomes not only envelope around space, but the fascia around the structure that's behind it as well, okay? Let me just come out here. Let's look at it this direction. And we can sort of see that, we have some work to do. We need to drop this thing so it sort of covers back beyond, right? And sort of drops past. All right, so I have them both selected still. It's set to level 1, and I can simply offset it. So that now if I change where level 1 is, it's always going to be, let's say, 36 inches below level 1, right? It'll just move along with it as an offset. So let's try that. Let's try negative 2 feet. I said 36, but let's try negative 24 inches, negative 2 feet. And let's go down to 3 then. Let's try that. Why not? There we go. I like 3 better. Yeah. Express these bad boys. These are going to be some nice walls. We might as well go all the way with them. Balls to the wall with the walls. All right. You guys ready? How many of you guys have some exterior walls now? Do I need to go back and show how to make duplicates of the type? Okay. But that's simply how you can start to take something that's already there, made for you, modify it, make a copy of it, name it whatever you need to, change its properties, then deploy it right back in your model. Okay? All right. Well, you can see that we're going to have some issues here. One of the things I'm going to do tomorrow or Wednesday, I guess Wednesday next time, is we'll pull out this floor slab and actually make a cantilever out to the north and also to the south. And then we'll actually bring and build some half walls that sort of act as railings that are the same thickness and come out around that tray. But we really, I think, also need to close up the north and south ends, so we can use a curtain wall for that. Right? You guys ready to do a curtain wall? All right, I know. We are really talking now, aren't we? All right, so one of the things that I think is kind of interesting here is that we have to worry about the frame, the steel frame. So if you think about this for a moment, the steel frame isn't embedded into the walls. It's not embedded into the beams aren't embedded into the roof. The roof will be seen on top. So we actually see the structure on the inside. What we'd probably do then is make a plate that follows the cavity around that flange all the way up, and then we would frame to the bottom of that beam and the sides of the columns, and that would be our rough opening. And of course, if we think about this just for a moment, right? We place a curtain wall in there, and that's glass and aluminum, and then we have a steel frame around it, right? So we build in, what do you call it? Expansion joints, right? You guys know what expansion joints are? Okay, so yeah, because all of these materials will be heating up and cooling down, and therefore expanding and contracting at different rates, what we really want to make sure, especially around glass, is that we account for that movement and have something that can absorb it so that we don't accidentally crush our glass and start breaking glass. Right? Yeah. Now, if you don't believe me, have you guys ever been in your studios in the morning time? Just those aluminum frames with those little skinny tall windows start to creak and crack because the glass and aluminum expand at different rates with the masonry opening for each one. When that sun, especially in the morning time, when the sun's in the east, and start to hit it, heats up that east wall. You start to hear crackling and popping, right? You'll hear that a lot in curtain walls. Okay? There are ways to get around that. In fact, the more contemporary curtain walls are better about that. But yeah, so if you start to hear the building creak and crack, that's usually expected, right? Things start to move. The building's always moving, right? And so how you can control it so that something that moves faster is next to something that moves slower, we don't end up with all kinds of massive failures, cracks, and other things, other problems. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to think of that as a rough opening. So I'm going to go to level 1. Yeah, look at that. And to draw a curtain wall, first of all, if I go to Architecture tab, you see how I have curtain system, curtain grid, mullions, right? We all assume those are curtain walls, right? But if I just want to draw a curtain wall from scratch, I go to the wall, architecture wall, and I go to architectural wall, wall architectural. And if I go down here towards the bottom, I have curtain walls, right? So I can do exterior glazing. Yeah, look at that. All right, and it's going to say for the base, I want to go from level 1 up to, and I can say, well, you know, for the top constraint, let's make it go to bottom of structure. No, it's top of steel. It's going to be too tall. We'll fix that in a minute, okay? And yeah, and then I can simply draw a wall that starts at the edge of this steel and ends at the inside edge of the other piece of steel, the other column on the other side. And what did it do? It looks like it extended it. Oh, come on. Boo. Here, I'm going to undo that. I don't want to draw that. It's not what I drew, Revit. All right, wall, architectural. Curtain wall, exterior glazing, yes. Up to the level of top of steel. I'll leave it unconnected for the moment. I don't care. I'm just going to draw it out here. And I'm just going to start it here and it here. We can always draw a plate in there for, you know, make a surface or something for that edge of the column. There we go. Now, why is it coming out here? Oh, I know, because it has room bounding. Oh, okay. See how it keeps closing it in and drawing it all the way through the column? I don't want to do that from wall to wall. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and undo this one more time. Okay. Always something. Wall, architectural, curtain wall. And down here, I'm going to say, come on. First of all, I don't want the room bounding. I'm going to hit apply. I'm going to hit edit type. Let's see if I can switch that, because that's really annoying me. I mean, I could always change it after the fact, but joint condition, curtain panel, function, exterior, spacing, layout, just for mullion size, blah, 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 blah. Okay, apparently I can't change it there. All right, so I'll go ahead and draw, but you'll find, or you'll see that it's going to change some things on us, and I want to make sure that we fix these things. I don't want the curtain wall to look like it's going through the column. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and click here. See how I'm very carefully not clicking all the way to the edge of the other walls? Okay, now it's extending them through the center lines of the walls to try to connect things up. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and select this wall that I made, and I'm going to tell it, no, I want the freaking line end of it to go out here. There we go. And in fact, I'm going to draw it over to, oh, come on. Disallow join. There we go. Okay. So I came all the way over here, and I see this little symbol. When I hold my cursor over it, it says disallow join. Once it automatically join the walls for us, which oftentimes can be really nice. Oh, you have a wall here and a wall here. You meant to join those, right? It'll do that automatically. But in this case, I don't. I'm like, cut it out, Revit. You're just annoying me. So when I do that, I can uncheck that. Then I can take the edge, the end of this thing. You see the little blue dot there that I'm clicking and dragging. And I can put it out over here. All right. Oof. All right, so let's go to the 3D view and see what we have. All right. Not too bad. But now it's going through our beam. We need to actually set the top to be at the bottom of the beam. So the bottom of the beam is part of our rough opening. There's several ways of doing this. One is we could just simply offset the top of it, go from the top of the steel and then offset it downwards, the depth of our beam, right? The depth of our beam, I believe, was 18 inches, but let's just double check that. So if I click on it and I go through its properties, you can see its weight based off of its There we go. Let's see. Where's the, it's a W18. Okay, so it's 18 inches. All right, so I'll go ahead and select this wall again. Go to L1, select my wall. There we go. And it goes up to the level top of steel, and then top offset, I'm going to say negative 18 inches, or 1'6". Let's go back to the 3D view. Now you can see that it doesn't conflict with my beam anymore. That's nice. All right, so I'm drawing the wall in plan, then I'm double checking, making sure, stretching the ends, making sure that they don't join where I don't want them to join. I suck them into where I want them to start and stop, and then I adjust the offset so that this thing doesn't conflict with my beam. But basically my steel frame now makes a nice rough opening for my curtain wall. Now the last thing I'm going to do, I'll wait for you guys to catch up. The last thing I'm going to do is change the property so I can subdivide this, the number of panels I want in the curtain wall, and then we'll add mullions. Okay. I had a question over here, Sue. Did you still have a question?
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to stop and
If I have like a beam in the middle of that curtain wall, do I have to set two separate curtain walls?
Yeah, I suppose so. Why would you want a beam there, though?
No, I have like a floor, second level.
I'm on the north side, so the north side, on the north side, you should have a big, tall window opening, right? So on the south side, you'll have that slab just from one bay on the second floor. But elsewhere, everybody else, here, let me show you in the section here. Right? So if I go to the section, this is what your section probably looks like, right? So I have my first floor, this is the south and this is the north. My first floor goes all three bays. My second floor just goes by that first bay on the south. And then my roof goes all the way across. That way, when I come out here, suddenly I'm compressed and then I expand and then I get this big, beautiful picture window, right? This sort of window line, okay? So that height is important. So make sure that you adjust, right? Just so you get this first bay on the south for the second floor. And that gives you then wide, tall space to fit in a staircase, right? Anyway. All right. So here's the level 2 plan. It's nothing except this slab right here, just this bay. And then, of course, the stair leading up to it. Okay. All right. So I'm working on the north side here and putting in the curtain wall. You guys ready to turn this curtain wall into, turn it into something other than just some random panes of glass? Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to be very careful and say, now that I have this expansive glass, how many panels do I divide this up into, right? You can do this by the size of the panel, and then you might have some weird offcuts at the end. Or you can just say, I want to divide this 6 times by 6 times. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to do 6 times by 6 times. Okay. So I have this thing selected. If I go to my curtain wall exterior glazing, and if I go to edit type again, and I go to the vertical grid and horizontal grid layout, I can, for the layout, I can say, rather than a fixed distance, I could say a fixed number. Okay. So now I'm changing the settings that I'll see over here in the properties. When I hit apply and OK, now when I scroll down here, I can see in the vertical grid, how many do I want? I'll change that to 6. In the horizontal grid, 6, and hit OK. Now I have a 6 by 6 panelization, right? So now I have glass, the grid is following, sort of equally dividing 6 times in the horizontal dimension and 6 times in the vertical dimension. So what I did, again, when you come over here, you're not gonna be able to adjust that. You have to go and edit the type, right? With that curtain wall selected. Then for vertical grid and horizontal grid, change the layout from fixed distance to fixed number. And then you can start to specify the number horizontally and vertically, right? The number of cells, number of rows and columns, right? Which is something that we've worked with a lot in Grasshopper with that grid shell project, right? Yeah. So now we can hit apply and OK. Then I can go over here in the properties and say how many divisions in horizontally, how many divisions vertically, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Why is it giving me 7, not 6? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. What? Here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2. Well, I'm putting in 5 to get 6. I don't understand why, but it's Monday and I'm done fighting with Revit for probably the rest of the day.
Isn't it that divides it 5 times to get 6 sections?
Beats the crap out of me. But now I have 6 and 6, so that's a good thing. Last but not least, now I need to add mullions, right? So I have a grid. In other words, I have edges, basically butt joints of, here's a pane of glass and here's a pane of glass. Here the short edges go butting together like that, right? Now I need to think about the connections, the frame that holds them together. We can do simple mullions. We can go to architecture mullions, save the project, sure, whatever. All right. And now it's going to ask us to select the type of mullion. I'm fond of smaller mullions, I personally. I think the ones out here are like ridiculously oversized. They look cheesy as a result. They look very 1980s, like, restaurant chain sort of look, right? I'm not fond of those at all. 1.5 by 2.5 rectangular, let's try those. Yeah, those look nice and slim and maybe perhaps elegant. And then last but not least, it says, do you want to select and add mullions, populate mullions by each grid line or by grid line segment? Or do you want to select all grid lines at once and apply these to all the grid lines at once? So I'm going to say all grid lines and then select all. Now we have mullions, okay? Again, not the easiest thing if you've never done this before, right? Like the workflow is everything, trying to understand how to get control of this thing. Otherwise, it moves around on you way too much, right? So what I did, we made a curtain wall, we drew it in plan, we sucked it in, made sure that it's the right size. We counteracted the offset for the top to work within our structure, right? Not to collide and clash with our structure. Then we subdivided it, so we said, well, maybe we don't want set increments. What we want is to simply divide by the number of panels. We made 6 by 6, which is nice because we made this thing like 48 by 32 or something. So it divides nicely by 4s and 6s. And, here we go, right? In fact, look at that. These things look like they almost match up with the center lines of the beams above, right? Anytime you can make those alignments, it's so good, right? I mean, architecturally, just making shit align, like this joint, where they hit, like match up, so damn hard. It makes a big difference, right? All right, so anyway, I'm a sucker for those. All right, yeah, look at that. Not too bad. Should we do the south side as well? Crap, we gotta do the south part as well. Same thing as before, right? And in fact, this is wrapping up for the end of the day. We got a little further than I thought we would today, so that's nice. I can recap the curtain wall skin at the beginning of next class. We'll start to add more stuff as well. Let's do that south side. Now, the north side's nice because the next time we meet, or maybe it's either Wednesday or maybe the next time, like Monday, the week from today, we'll bring our stuff from Revit into Forma, and then we'll start to do the solar analysis. And what you'll notice is that the north side is going to be pretty nice. It's not a big deal. We're going to have shade, right? We're not going to have a lot of direct sunlight at all. On the south side, we'll have a lot, right? And so now then we'll have to start thinking about strategy for how do we shade that south glass, right? Which we can do really quite easily. Let's go around now. Let's turn this 180. There we are. All right. Look at that three-dimensional view for a moment. And I'm going to do mostly the same thing. Go to level 1. Now, instead of looking at the north side, I'm going to look at the south side. Later on, we'll start to expand glass and start to cantilever some things out. We'll build a bridge from the south, from the entrance all the way down to the road, etc. Right? We'll do that stuff over the next week or two. But let's just figure out this curtain wall. So let's go to architectural wall, curtain wall, glazing, level 1, up to level top of steel. That sounds good to me. I'm going to draw this. It's going to probably try to join things together with the walls that we currently have. That's fine, right? We know that's going to happen. It wants to do that, and usually that kind of smart move that Revit does is nice. But now I just want to, I don't want that. I just want to select the damn wall that I made. And I want it to not line up. Here we go. So you see this little icon, this little symbol here? It's saying, you know, if you don't want this to join with the other wall, the side wall, you have to click this, disallow the join. Now I have this end over here, and I can drag it to where I want it. And we can close that up in just a little bit, maybe tomorrow or Wednesday or whenever. Gonna do the exact same thing over here. Click that, then I get the end, and I can actually drag the end where I want it to be instead of it automatically snapping and joining with that outside wall, right? We talked about, again, we'd probably just weld a plate here and along that column and make that part of our rough opening for our curtain wall, right? So we just have to draw that at some point or make a model of it. We will. All right, so now I have that wall, and I can see that it's going way too high, by 18 inches probably. So let's go to our 3D view and check that out. Yeah, you can see it's going all the way through the beam to the top of the steel. And we want it to end at the bottom of the steel. And the bottom of that steel is the top of the steel minus 18 inches, right? So we're gonna go top offset 18, and then we'll add that negative. Negative 18 inches or 1 foot 6 inches, whatever you wanna say. And that'll bring that down, right? Now, again, we need to change the properties of the grid. We don't want to just give what Revit gives us. I mean, Revit and Rhino, they're not designers. They don't know better. They don't really know what a curtain wall is, even though they can help us model one. They don't know what aesthetics are. They don't know what proportion is. They don't know what performance means, et cetera, right? So we got to control this stuff. In order to tell it that we want to specify the number of panels rather than the size of the panels, we go to edit type. We still have that wall selected. We go to edit type. And then instead of, we have already set it to fixed number. Perfect, right? I remember that, fixed number, fixed number. Hit OK. And when I scroll down now, it's asking me for the number. And I'm going to say 5 instead of to get 6, and 5 instead of to get 6. Again, I don't remember why. Now, we will have a collision over here on the south side, which you talked about, right? So on the south side, we need to probably pull this back and start to rethink where we're actually placing the window and the beam and the edge of the floor, right? But we'll worry about that maybe on Wednesday, right? Until then, right, we have the proportions. And now again, just for practice, let's go to architecture and let's go to mullion. Let's select the mullions that we want, 1.5 by 2.5 rectangular. All grid lines, so we can select all the grid lines at once and populate them with mullions. Okay. Now we're going to have to reconcile this. It takes a little bit clever architecting, but we'll figure it out. Right? Most likely what we'll do is we'll pull out the walls and the floor and again make another cantilever, and then we'll move this curtain wall away from the structure. Right? It would be clipping onto the structure anyway, rather than touching it. So it certainly wouldn't go through it. That'd be terrible, right? Okay, but that's where we're going to stop for the day. Unless you guys are really ranked. I mean, the roof would only take 30 seconds. I can show you roof really quickly but we'll talk about it again on Wednesday. Roof by footprint. Let's make a shape. Let's go to top of steel. Make that rectangle, and then I'm just going to draw inside the walls here, maybe. And one of the things to worry about with this roof is that it wants to put a slope on it, like it's a hip roof. No, don't do that. So where it says 9/12 is a slope, I'm just going to hit 0 and make it a flat roof. Hit plus sign. Now let's take a look at what it looks like in 3D. I'm not sure what it did. Oh, it put it down here for some reason. Okay, it's still selected. And let's just go and say, base level is level 1. That makes sense. So let's do top of steel. There we go. And hit apply. Duh. All right. Oof. All right, so we have some work to do, right? We'd want to extend that out to the edge of the structure again. We would change the thickness, and then we'd bring our roof up to match the top so that it looks like a continuous up and down, right? So we'll talk about this again on Wednesday, and we'll spend a little more time on the roof, closing things up, making those alignments. We'll pull out the floors, start to make some cantilevers. We'll reconcile the south face with the problem that we have with the curtain wall going through structure and slab, right? So we'll play a little bit of cleanup and sort of make some architectural moves that hopefully serve the larger idea, but also fix some of those problems that we have, right?
How tall was your second floor from your first one?
20 feet. So I have about 48 feet total from the top of the first floor to the bottom of the steel, or top of the steel. But yeah, it's like 20 and then 28, something like that. Let me just confirm that, but I'll open up in a section. But thank you again for your patience, following along. Take a look at this. On Wednesday, come with questions. If you need me to step back and we go over a few more things so you can do it in class, I'm perfectly fine with that. We can take our time. What I'm curious about and what I find important is that you're learning, right? That you're figuring these things out and developing the workflows that, this is one way to do the workflow. So let's see, yeah, I believe, yeah, that's 20 feet, yeah, 20 feet. Yeah, 20 and then 28, yeah. All right, Roy. Okey-doke. I'll see you guys Wednesday.